Hello, everybody, and welcome to EduMatch Tweet and Talk number 30. Please follow along with us on our Google Plus live hangout on air at bit.ly/tweet talk 30, as well as on Twitter with the hashtag EduMatch. Speaking of EduMatch, if you want to be our featured person of the day, get all hooked up on Twitter, then just go to our website at edumatch.education, fill out the form, and we'll get you connected as a featured person of the day. So before we begin, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to DigSit Summit UK going on January 23rd in Bournemouth in the United Kingdom. Also the DigSit-a-thon, which will be the official kickoff, partnering with EdCamp Global Classroom. So the DigSit-a-thon will be January 19th, and EdCamp Global Classrooms will be January 28th and 29th. So check those out. They're looking for student and teacher facilitation. So tonight's topic is the Parent-Teacher Balance Part 2. This was such a hot topic that we had to bring it back. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to our moderators, Dr. Dorian and Valerie. So welcome.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there? We have a full panel, and we want to make sure that everybody has a great discussion and an opportunity to participate. I am Dr. Dorian Lee Roberts-Miller from Detroit, Michigan, and I am a teacher, a fifth grade teacher for Detroit Public Schools. I want everybody to briefly introduce themselves. We'll start with the co-moderator and just work our way down. Valerie, why don't you go ahead and let the people know who you are.
All right, I'm Valerie Lewis, an educator here in Georgia, 10th and 11th grade, special education.
I'm SHAI McGowan. I teach math in State College, Pennsylvania.
I'm Patricia Brown, technology integration coach in St. Louis, Missouri.
I am Josue Falaise. I'm a principal at a junior high school, grade 7 and 8, in Roselle, New Jersey.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anjanette Washington, Broward County Schools. That's the Fort Lauderdale area. Fifth grade teacher and adjunct professor in South Florida.
My name is Charlie Rizzuto. I'm a health and physical education teacher at Oyster Bay High School, Long Island, New York.
And hello, everyone. My name is Brian Smith. I am a one-to-one integration specialist in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay, welcome everybody. You can see we just have an array of panelists here, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, what is the teacher-parent balance for you, and how do you guys handle it? We'll start out with Annette, and we'll go the opposite direction.
I try to fine line because I have a second grade daughter, so a lot of times she has to come along with mommy when I have meetings, or I have to keep her in aftercare. She has to come with me sometimes to faculty meetings. So right now we're working on balance, definitely.
I actually don't have a child in school right now. He graduated. He is a junior in college, but I've lived this balance, and he was an autistic. He was on the autism spectrum, so I had that part of it as well.
Okay, Brian, how about you?
Well, the struggle is real. I have actually 4 children, and it usually began with all of my children starting kindergarten with me in school while I was teaching in the classroom. Mm-hmm. But since that has changed, my schedule is more complex, so my children no longer go to school with me. However, it is very important that when the clock strikes 5 o'clock, I make sure that Daddy is done as educator and Daddy come home as parent. That's where I make sure I have that balance. It's very important to me that my children see that I leave job and I come home as Daddy.
Got you. Thank you very much, Brian. How about you, Josh?
As many know, the role of a principal is somewhat unknown, and it goes day by day depending on the situation. I'm fortunate to have my wife stay home full time, so she takes the brunt of it. The past 3 years, since he's only 3 years old, was, I don't know, just I didn't work as much. I always left it pretty much at 4 o'clock, but this year's been a challenge with something different. So my wife is home with my son.
Patricia?
Yes, so I have 5 children, all of which are boys. So it is definitely a huge challenge to be an educator and also be a technology person. So you're like never off. You're always working towards the next thing. I am blessed to have a great partner in my husband, and we work really well together, trying to provide that balance and structure in the household. And it's also a greater challenge when your children attend not only the district that you work in, but the school that you work with. So it's definitely a struggle.
And Charlie?
So I'm relatively new to the struggle. My son is 2 years old, but the struggle that I have with the parent-teacher balance right now is the fact that I feel like many of you and like many teachers, I wear many hats, and one of those hats now for the past 2 years has to be daddy. I'm teaching health for the first time this school year. Like I said before, I'm a physical education teacher that tries to really advocate for the validity of my field and my profession when it's sometimes viewed as pseudo-education. So just that element of being a teacher in that field takes up a lot of time, and then you try to do other things on the side to help your students, whether you're coaching a sport or you're running a club or you're just staying after to help a student in need, even though it's not quote-unquote an extra help day that you have scheduled. So it's really tough to juggle. My wife right now is a stay-at-home mom, so that helps, but at the same time, when you come home, she's been in it at home all day. So now she needs help, and she needs you to kind of really quickly turn around and put that hat on and give her a little bit of a break from the home stuff. So that's my balance right now.
Okay, very good. I got a little bit of a question for my dads on the panel tonight. Let me ask you guys this. Is there like a stereotype, since we're talking about it with our male parent teachers, that you don't have it as hard carrying that back? That's something that I wanted to throw out there, and that's something that I wanted to ask you guys, because I think it's always definitely out there that the women are maternal, the maternal instincts, we are the school teachers in the schoolhouse, but I mean, I know there's an additional struggle with the men, so I want the men to have an opportunity to put it on out there. Why don't we start with you, Charles, since you're new to it? I know you're probably having a little bit of a time adjusting, so why don't we start off with you?
Yeah, well, that's definitely a true statement. A little bit of a hard time adjusting to it. I don't know. I guess I'm still getting used to all the stereotypes, but the first thing that popped into my head right now was today. Like I said, my wife's a stay-at-home mom, and she takes care of the things at home. She makes sure that he's taken care of at home with all of his needs, and she makes him breakfast every day. She makes him lunch every day. She's putting him in for his nap every day. And even on the weekends, they're in their they're in their routine, right? So even when Daddy is home and when Daddy is around, sometimes he just migrates towards her for those things. Like I'll put him to bed. Sometimes I'll put him in for a nap, but he kind of goes to her because that's their routine. Well, today my wife was sick, so Daddy had to kind of wear all hats, right? Because I have to still lesson plan for tomorrow, and I still have to make sure that I graded whatever papers were there for my health class, and I had to make sure that he had lunch, and I took him to the store, and my wife was kind of out of it today, so I kind of got a little bit of an experience as to what her everyday is like. And it definitely was a little bit of a challenge, but at the same time, I feel like, and I have this conversation with my wife kind of often, when she's in it at home all day and I'm in it at work all day, we have to find time to appreciate what the other one does. because we kind of get caught up in our own worlds, and she's, you know, at home making sure everything's right, and I'm at work trying to balance the two, and we have to make sure that we take the time to appreciate the other one's role in this whole family dynamic, and me wearing two hats and her wearing a bunch of hats also at home, right? So she's kind of his teacher right now at home before he starts going to school, and the appreciation, the mutual appreciation for what the other one does is a big piece of this whole dynamic, I feel like.
Thank you so much for sharing, Charles. And I know it's new, and I hope it helps that it gets a little bit easier, maybe, as you go along. I don't know. I'm 15. My son is 15 years old, so I'm at the high school time. Josh, let's start with you. Any stereotypes?
Of course there are, but I think it falls on the person. Is it Philip? Right before me. My son is 3 years old.
I'm sorry, Charles.
Rizzuto.
Yeah.
Oh, Charles. Just like Charles right before me. My son is 3 years old, so I guess I could be considered fairly new also, and then even more so, like my wife and I were married for 10 years before having our child. So we were also in a routine, so it was different for both of us. Although she stays home, and I come home dead tired, and there's still always more work for the most part sometimes. I always try to push even more so to wash dishes. Like if I get home early enough, for the most part I do, I take my son a bath. I was changing his diapers over this holiday break. I potty trained him, so like every half hour it was me. I just to give her a break. On the weekends is my time, so that's what we call daddy days. And although I'm dead tired, I just try to make sure that my son knows that he has a father, regardless of how tired I am, because it's a kind of sacrifice that I believe that parents have to do. And I just pass it off to someone like a babysitter or housekeeper. Again, that balance, because I mean, that wife gets to appreciate you also, because they see that she's wearing down all day. Because my son, I was just like always latches on to me or her, and I like to make sure that she gets a little freedom too, because it's needed, regardless of where we're separated at work, to let you get a breather. But at home all the time with one child, whether you get your play dates, you clean the house, there's a lot of burdens that I would like to relieve her. And now it's just as it gets older to start finding time for us, and again to get a balance, because I am a husband also besides a father.
Very good, very good. Thank you for sharing. Brian.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us. Oh, and we have little ones. Yes, we love the little ones. Welcome.
Yes, this is Jackson Jericho. This is my third, my second oldest son. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. But I don't fit the stereotypical, I guess, role of a father. I do the shopping. I do the cooking. I do the cleaning.
I thought Mom does.
Huh? Mama does the clothes shopping, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she does. That's where she is right now. But it's important to me. I do the picking up of the boys for their sports activities. We support the girls in all of their activity as well. But that's kind of how I was raised. I was raised that the father had to be that figure in that home. Biblically, the father raised the child. So I grew up with that mindset, that understanding. So I knew early on in my marriage that my wife was understanding that I was spending way too much time with my students at school, or way too much time doing all the extra work to make my class as excellent as I needed it to be, and I wasn't spending enough time doing the things that I promised when we got married. So I made a serious change, especially when we had our third child, which is him. It is critical, like I said earlier, to stop at 5 o'clock, or unless I have a training after late that evening, that I'm home for their activities. I'm home to help with homework, that I'm home to make sure the clothes are ready for the next day. But we have also given them responsibilities as well, right?
Yeah.
You're learning to do laundry?
Well, only fold the clothes, but not do the laundry.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's a skill that's needed, Jackson. Jackson, how do you feel about having your dad be a educator, a teacher?
He can't hear you. She asked, how do you feel about me being an educator or me used to being a teacher? How do you feel about that? You don't know? Did you mind me spending some of the time with other students rather than at home?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
How do you feel about it now that I'm in a new role?
Happy.
Happy?
Wow, that's a lot to be considered. Thank you so much, Brian, for sharing. One of my last questions, and this is for everybody. Tell me, what is one of your biggest struggles, Annette, being a parent, teacher, and the balance, if you have one? I'm hoping you do, but just if you have one.
Okay, I wasn't sure who was supposed to go first. Anyway, my biggest struggle was it's really hard for me to sit back and watch bad teaching. And and when I would see that with my son, for instance, my son had a teacher that just said, "Okay, what grade do you think you deserve?" And my son was always very hard on himself, being autistic, and that so he would always give himself C's and D's, and she would say, "Okay, well, that's what you deserve then." And that was really hard for me to sit back and watch that. And of course, I didn't keep quiet. But so I think my biggest struggle was when I saw that my son's needs weren't being met in some ways.
Thank you, thank you. How about you, Patricia? What do you think is one of the biggest struggles?
I'd say I definitely would agree with SHAI with the struggle of, dealing with teachers. And it's especially difficult when they are also your peers or your colleagues and having to address certain issues and making sure that you're always professional, which I do, but it's sometimes hard to make sure you don't cross the line. Being in technology, I'm always looking for great instructional strategies with technology, and then when I don't always see that in the classroom, that definitely is difficult. It's also a struggle with dealing with, like I said, difficult colleagues, but also when my students are having, when my children may be having issues academically, just being able to push them, but also being able to balance that educator role and parent role and being in the building. And sometimes for me, what we've had to do is I've had to make my husband, not make him because he wants to be, but involve him more as it relates to how he interacts with the teachers and even administration, and making sure that I'm able to kind of step back a little bit, still give my feedback, but allow him to kind of stand, in the forefront to be able to address some of the needs. So that's definitely been one of the major issues, is dealing with colleagues and keeping it professional, not making it personal, and being able to give my kids what they need.
Gotcha. Okay, and I'm going to leave it to my co-moderator to take it away.
All right. Okay, so going through the Twitter feed, I noticed that Techie Margaret talked about giving 100% at work and then coming home and giving 100%. And it seems like Knikole and educator Ann have all agreed with that, making sure that you turn off what you need to turn off at a decent time so that you can turn on your parent hat. So that's just a little bit coming from our Twitterverse, time management, and some of the comments that we see coming out. So for our panelists, and I see, Ann Jeanette, you are back with us. I'm going to throw this scenario out to everybody. So we're talking about teacher accountability. So Patricia kind of led a good segue, and so did SHAI. When we see things that are not happening in the classroom that we feel like should be happening, and we sometimes don't know if we should cross the line, if we should say something, or approaching cautiously. So in thinking about teacher accountability, how would you react? And this is whether you're wearing your teacher hat, your parent hat, or both. How would you react knowing that your child is in a classroom where the teacher has all failing scores? and this is in regards to standardized tests. How would you react knowing that your child is in a class with a teacher that has all failing scores? Which hat do you put on? What do you do? So if anyone wants to jump in with that.
I will.
All right, Josh?
I've dealt with it from a perspective. I know as a not as a parent because my child is 3, but I've dealt with it as an administrator, seeing that, and that's unacceptable. Where I actually brought the person to the plate, looking at the results, and at the time the person actually had a child in our building with other teachers and expecting that. So when we got to education, it's always to better children. That's our purpose, to help them learn and achieve. And obviously, when you see that not happening, that's the first thing you call to the plate. If your child were in your class, not learning and not achieving, and it's acceptable or not acceptable, then why are these? And then the question is, what are you doing differently? And also, what can I do to support you? But if there's a chronic pattern, then again, this is where the accountability part comes on the administrator as well as the teacher. What are you doing as far as to help yourself with PD? Are you asking for assistance if it is just a little too much for you? Because again, as we all as parents will go, with my child, because when my wife and I discuss this all the time. When my child's in school, we're going to be on the teachers for him to make sure that he is going to get the best, that he does excel. But in addition to that, we're going to do some things outside of just the school day to support him beyond that also. But the main thing is call him to the plate, because again, if your own child was in your class, would you be doing what you do? And then give examples, like, when my child doesn't come home with extension homework, there is no extension to links, useful links beyond the day. Over the holiday break, there's never any pattern as far as like supportive material to enrich the child. So all these are kind of examples. And then someone alluded already to the type of technology that's extending and pushing your child. If these kind of things don't exist, and not just in the classroom, but maybe even the school, that's where people need to actually step up to the board meetings and start fighting for not just for your child, but for your community.
Okay, very good. Anyone else want to jump in on that scenario? What would you do? Which hat would you wear, or both? Okay, and Jeanette?
For me, I probably first would want to find out what's going on with that teacher. Is there personal circumstances going on? What can I do, colleague to colleague, to support them first? Once that's established, then I probably would look at, as the principal said, do you need resources? What's going on with the extended activities for that class? Are there parents who are also coming to support that teacher, whether it's volunteering, whether it's bringing resources to that class, whether it's, and all of us are in technology, what can we do to help that teacher that is struggling? A lot of times teachers kind of back off, but that's the time to really help that teacher out. And then what is going on with my child? Could there be a need? Could they need other support systems that maybe the school isn't providing? I would be talking to maybe a curriculum specialist, ESE specialist, the doctor. Could be some other factors that could be preventing my child from learning. So I would be looking at all of that before I would point fingers. But the gentleman said eloquently, if there's a pattern, then there's something else that I can't control, and then my administrator probably, or administrators would probably step in to do. So that's just my take on it.
And so what I'm hearing in common is that you all are definitely lending the hand of support and being understanding versus coming in right away and attacking. And so if you look at your screen really quick, you'll notice that, matter of fact, what Josh was saying, Dr. Rawls, talks about just picking up the kids from the bus stop. They both beg to go to the library, winning, literacy, raising scholars. So him coming from work and his kids coming from school, he had just taken off his teacher hat and should be putting on his parent hat. But at the same time, you understand that sometimes those hats are worn together, where he still wants to raise scholars, But then he also realizes I must meet the needs of my kids. He could easily say, oh, no, I don't want to deal with anything educationally related. I just want to go home, kick it, put my feet up for a little bit and just take a breather. But he immediately drove to the public library to help increase literacy. So sometimes we can't separate the two hats. And then there are some situations where we do. Is there anybody else? I'll take one or two more that might want to jump in. All right, I see Patricia. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that comment about stepping up as a parent. Just even in my personal situation, you know, I'm huge on STEM, and the schools that my kids are at right now, they're not really, you know, there yet. So I have to take it upon myself to provide these opportunities and these experiences for my own children. So we're doing things on the weekends. We're doing things in the evening. I'm providing, you know, the summer programming. So because I know that that is important. So even though the teacher in the classroom or the school or the district is not where I want them to be, as it relates to STEM, I'm going to make sure I have those opportunities for myself. And as a teacher role, or as an educator in my building, working with a colleague that may have difficulty with the initial question that you gave, I'm going to provide them with as much support as I can, and making sure that I can help them help, you know, the students in their class, not just mine. So keeping it professional and making sure that the guidance and the direction that I give them is not to make them feel inadequate, but to actually make sure that I'm supporting them.
Absolutely. Shay, Charlie, or Brian, did any of you want to add to that? I know in our chat many of you are stating the same thing, that you know, your hat never leaves your head, in terms of whether you're a parent or that teacher hat, in a sense. We're always wanting the best for our kids and elevating them, so sometimes we feel like that hat never leaves. Brian?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was
Charlie?
just
Oh, no, that was Brian. Okay, sorry.
I was just going to say that I've learned, you know, I have a wide range right now. I have a 14-year-old to a 5-year-old. But I've learned with the first set of two that I have to take off that teacher hat a little bit more, because I do expect the best out of my own students, especially my students, since I'm an educator. However, it became a little too much for them, a lot of pressure. They felt that they had the expectations that they could not achieve because Daddy expected too much of them. So it was very important to me that I did remove that hat a tad bit, still supplement what I felt was missing in the classroom, but I also became their support model. So when they did have struggles, I wanted them to feel comfortable enough to say, okay, Daddy, I can't come to you and ask a question here and there because you're not being overbearing right now. So that was something that I had to learn. So my younger two will have the benefit of a more balanced daddy, where my older two, I had to learn from those particular mistakes.
Absolutely. We'll take Charlie, and then we'll go to Shay next.
Yeah, so just quickly, I totally agree with what Brian just said, and I mean, my son is still young, he's 2, I'm still figuring all this stuff out, but in the early years right now, I feel like both hats are always on, just one kind of grows bigger in different moments. Even when I'm in the classroom with my students, I feel like my parent hat is still on, because just like Joshua said before, like that huge question, would I want my child in my classroom, right? So I understand that each one of my students is somebody's son or is somebody's daughter, and one day my son is going to be sitting in somebody's classroom. So I try to be the teacher that I would want Cameron to be for, you know, when he gets into school. To have when he gets into school. And even at the same time at home, like the daddy hat grows, but that teacher hat still kind of hovers around. I mean, even right now he's 2, and I work a lot and talk a lot about growth mindset versus fixed mindset with my students, and I make them aware of their language. You know, we've all seen the bulletin boards on Twitter, change your language, change your mindset. And I really think about the words that I use with him. Like he loves playing basketball on his little Fisher Price. He calls it basketball because he can't really say it yet. But like, you know, I never tell him that he's good, and not because I'm a bad dad. Not that I don't want to tell him that he's good. I tell him that, you know, try to reference it to, you know, how much practice he's done, or like when he learns something new, I never go, oh buddy, you're so smart. I go, oh, you work so hard. I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm so glad that, you know, you got to where you are, whatever it may be. Just So I feel like in that regard, that teacher hat is still on when I choose the words to use with him as his father, because that whole growth versus fixed mindset came from my life as an educator. And then on the flip side, like I feel like my parent hat is still on even when I'm in the classroom, because I want to be the teacher for other people's children that I would want my son to have when he's of age to go to school.
Perfect. And Patricia says that parents are a child's first educator. SHAI will let you jump in, and then Dorian's going to interview one of our little guests as well, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
The only thing that I was going to add is that I think I'm a far better teacher because I'm a mother. My son, as he grew in his needs, when I first started teaching 20 years ago, it was all about content. Do I get this covered to get them ready for the next class? But then as Zachary became into school and started asking the why questions, then I figured all other students want to know their why too. So then I moved more to exploratory and then I noticed with my son, he always had to have a relationship with a teacher or he would not learn from that teacher. And so I changed from being content only to both, and then where I now, relationships are more important to me. I build those positive relationships before I even try to teach him a thing. And that all evolved being a mother, watching my son grow up and watching him and his needs. And I think that is it true in a lot of cases, is that I was a good mom. I think I was a good mom because I was a teacher, but I'm a good teacher because I'm a mom also.
Exactly. And then Dorian, I'll let you take over Jada. And I know that we are coming down to the end, but when we think about that teacher-parent balance as well, I know Dorian and I were talking about situations and things that are going on in Chicago and Detroit. And even recently, Margaret mentioned what's going on with PEIA in West Virginia. When we think about the government and health benefits being taken from teachers, or teachers being forced to not show up to school, they're going on strike. You function in a professional manner, but then at the same time, you have to think about how these people are impacting your family. And so you have a couple of hats, and maybe some hats that need to come out of some bags somewhere that you want to put on. So when we're talking about this parent-teacher balance, the government doesn't realize how they impact not just us as educators and employees of a district or a system or a county, but they're not realizing the food that they're removing off of our tables at home and wearing that parent-teacher hat as well. So this is a big, big, big hot topic. So Dorian, I'm going to ping it over to you, and let's wrap this thing up.
Caught it. All right, Jada. How are you, Jada? Jada is Anjanette's daughter, and I believe you're a second grader, correct, Jada?
Yes.
All right. How you like school?
Good.
Good. How do you like your mom being a teacher?
Great.
Oh, really? What's so great about mom being a teacher?
It's amazing.
I love it. Well, Jada, I want to thank you for being on our Tweet and Talk. You are adorable. Brian, thank Jackson for us as well for contributing. One of the things I believe is Lit Coach Lori from Twitter. She said you can do it all, but you can't do it all well. Some days I'm an awesome mom, some days I'm an awesome teacher, but rarely am I both. And I agree with that. I know many of us in EduMatch, we've been talking about what we would do if we played Powerball and what we would do with the money. And I am going to say, if I do win Powerball on Wednesday, you still owe me money for all that I do and all that we as educators do as parents and teachers. You still owe me.
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to grab and send it on over to, throw it on over to Sarah. Hopefully she catches it.
Oh, I got it! Yay! Well, I want to thank our moderators, Doc Dorian and Valerie. Great job. Thank you to everyone on panel for all of your great insights. Thank you to everyone who is participating on Twitter with us. Thank you to everyone who is watching us. So this Twitter chat will be storified, and this audio feed will be available as an iTunes podcast in the next few weeks. So bit.ly/EduMatch podcast if you want to subscribe to that. So come back next week. We're going to have a great topic, administrators and teachers working together. So that will be at bit.ly/tweettalk31. So anyone can be a panelist who has an interest in that. Just go to that page, bit.ly/tweettalk31, and just leave a comment saying panelist, and we will add you to the panel. So thank you all so much for that. And if anyone is going to be at FETC, then please RSVP if you want to have lunch with us on Thursday at noon. It is at bit.ly/EduMatch FETC16 for the year 2016. So once again, bit.ly/EduMatch FETC16. So the sooner the better. So can't wait to see some of you face to face. Can't wait to see the rest of you virtually. So everybody have a great evening, and thank you again.